This is Global Mining News, available worldwide on the internet. Welcome to the Northern Miner Podcast. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, your online editor and host. And happy Thanksgiving to all our Canadian friends, including myself. We celebrate Thanksgiving about a month at least before our American friends, and we just had that holiday yesterday. So I hope it was a wonderful, restful time. I think it's just one of the busiest times a year right now. Everybody I talk to is sprinting, running at full pace. It's sort of like there's February, March, April, and there's October, November. It's a full sprint. So lots going on. We have GMS, speaking of sprinting, and make time for this one. Global Mining Symposium, the Virtual Mining and Investment Conference, November 10th and 12th, 2020. Go to northernminer.com/GMS. You can register for free, or you can become a sponsor. And you have a big blue button to register. You have a big orange button to sponsor. And I got to say, it's great for sponsors. Got everybody right in front of their computer, and they show your logo a million times with really cool 80s music. Get in contact. If you're looking for our sales staff, just hit the contact page. Talk to Michael or Joe. They'll be happy to help you. They're both very nice individuals. The lineup is filling up. We have David Elliott, Vice President and Director of Haywood Securities. We have Serafino Iacono, the Executive Chairman of Grand Columbia Gold. We have John McConnell, President and CEO of Victoria Gold. And we have David Rosenberg, President and Chief Economist and Strategist of Rosenberg Research. And we have Mark Child from Condor Gold, Dr. Chris Hind, who writes for us regularly from Pick and Pen, Peter Ma, COO of McEwen Mining, and Rob McEwen, Chairman and Chief Owner of McEwen Mining, and many more. The conference is exactly 1 month and 7 hours and 18 minutes away, so do not delay. Register today. This speaker list is just getting started, and already we have some major stars on it. And also you can see on that page our wonderful ad done by Mladen. I played it last week, so if you want to just listen to it, it's very exciting and dramatic. For this kind of quasi-Thanksgiving episode, I thought we would turn to this groundbreaking of the Côté mine, which happened about 5 weeks ago. And you had the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau there, you had the Premier Ford, and you had a whole bunch of other dignitaries. You also had the Mattagami First Nation Chief Chad Boissoneau. And so there were several speeches that day. I took those three. Let's take someone who represents the country, the Prime Minister. Let's take someone who represents the province, the Premier. And let's take someone who represents the Indigenous community, Chief Chad Boissoneau from the Mattagami First Nation. So I thought that would just give us a really nice sample of what is happening in Canada. You know, they had a common theme in all their speeches, and that theme was jobs, jobs, jobs. And I think the real moral of this story, of course, this was only 5 weeks ago, is the value of the mining sector in the midst of a pandemic. When everything is kind of falling apart, you have this rock hard mining. So all very, very interesting. Speaking of rock hard though, I'm actually in the opposite direction. I'm in this crypto land, and there's pretty amazing things are going on over there. You know, my furthest kind of most far out ideas is like, we almost need a crypto mining side to our websites. I don't think any of us are there yet, including me, but this is huge, what's going on here. A lot of you are more up to date on this than I am. But from what I gather, there is going to be a new internet, and it's not going to be owned by anyone. It's going to be a peer-to-peer internet. You already hear Jack Dorsey talking about this, and he's already talking, and he's Mr. Bitcoin, a huge supporter, Square going into Bitcoin. And I don't want to get sidetracked here, but this is kind of a big deal. Twitter itself is, Jack Dorsey is talking about how companies like Twitter are going to get away from this model of hosting everything and that really it's going to be this peer-to-peer, the same way Bitcoin works, this blockchain stuff. And, I always thought this stuff was a little weird. I mean, my roommate back in 2012 when I lived in Montreal, he was talking to me about Bitcoin, and man, should I have listened. I was like, yeah, just give me the gold and silver, man. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has gone up like 100,000% or something like that. It's probably, I think it was trading at $150, $200 around then. And now it's 10,000. Actually, Canadian, it's 15,000. So yeah, anyways, these are all US prices. So why I bring this up and how it makes it relevant is from this mining industry perspective, let's not be last to come to the party. Let's figure this out ahead of time and figure out how that disrupts this industry. Because this blockchain stuff, there's going to be a new internet, and it's going to be peer-to-peer. I mean, who knows? But this is how it looks like it's going, and all the smart money is kind of banking on this. So I think as we think about this industry, we have to think how that affects it. And maybe it doesn't affect it very much, but it could affect how you do operations. It could, who knows? And as I go deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole, the more I'm absolutely convinced that this is where things are going. And if you want to see hope, there's a new generation of economists that are coming out, and they're like 25 years old. So don't delay. Start looking at this stuff now, because you might as well look at it now rather than 2 years from now or 6 months from now when it's in all the headlines. Look at it now. So with that, if you want to find us online, you can find us at northernminer.com. You can find us on Twitter at Northern Miner. You can find us on Instagram at The Northern Miner. And you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And you can also find us on YouTube, where we host these podcasts, and wherever podcasts are available, including Spotify and Stitcher. And with that, let's turn to the news. And turning to the website, we're going to start in Australia. This is global mining news after all. And sometimes I get the sense that we don't really pay enough attention to Australia. And there is a pretty big story here. Northern Star, a company I've barely heard of, and Saracen create $11.5 billion Australian gold giant. And this is by Cecilia Jamasmi, mining.com. Australia's Northern Star Resources is buying smaller peer Saracen Mineral Holdings in a deal that will create an $11.5 billion US gold giant, the world's 8th largest gold miner by market value. The $4.14 billion merger comes amid record high gold prices above $2,000 an ounce for the first time since August, brought on by investors rushing to safe haven assets in response to fears triggered by the coronavirus pandemic. The combined company, with mines in Australia and Alaska, will produce 2 million ounces of gold per year from fiscal 2027. So it's a bit of a projection. So in 2027, they will have basically the equivalent of Agnico Eagle today. So just to contextualize it a little bit here, and the synergies from the purchase of Saracen will save as much as $2 billion in operational savings, according to the miners. Northern Star, Australia's second largest gold miner, will own 64% of the combined entity, with Saracen holding the remaining 36% stake. A shareholder meeting to formally approve the proposal will be held in January 2021. So the combined entity, Saracen, is going to hold a third of it. And Northern Star and Saracen already jointly run Australia's iconic Super Pit, which has an estimated reserve of 7.3 million ounces and has produced an average of 660,000 ounces per year over the last 5 years. Impressive. And finally, the combined Northern Star Saracen, which aims to become the world's 7th gold miner by output, the world's 7th largest gold miner by output, will focus on 3 production centers. One of them is Kalgoorlie, based around the Super Pit in Central Australia. The second is Yandell, which will consolidate both companies' small mines and mills in the nearby desert region of Western Australia. And the third center, around Northern Star's Pogo mine in Alaska, is where the companies see major growth opportunities. Pogo, which the Perth-based miner bought in 2018 for $260 million, is expected to produce between 180 and 220,000 ounces of gold in the next 12 months. The goal of the mine is to churn out 300,000 ounces per year by 2023. There you have it, a little bit of education on what's going on in Australia, a big merger. And that's really the theme of the news on this episode. It's a whole bunch of mergers and sales and JVs. Here we go. Our next story is Agnico Eagle is investing $6.2 million in Maple Gold Mine, and they've signed a joint venture. They have signed an agreement to consolidate 2 adjacent land packages in Quebec into a 50-50 joint venture. There's lots of deals going on in the space right now. I haven't actually seen a lot written about how there is a lot of deal making going on, but there is. The agreement, a binding term sheet, will combine Maple Gold Mine's Douay Gold Project in northern Quebec with Agnico's adjacent past-producing Joutel project into a consolidated property package covering approximately 400 square kilometers. The term sheet envisions a 50-50 joint venture with Agnico and Maple Gold Mines agreeing to negotiate towards and enter into a definitive joint venture agreement within 3 months. The current agreement calls for Agnico to fund $18 million in exploration expenses over 4 years and for the 2 companies to jointly fund an additional $500,000 of exploration work on VMS targets in the western portion of the Douay project. Each party would also receive a 2% net smelter return royalty on the property that they contribute to the JV, which could be bought back for $40 million each. And here we have Matthew Horner, Maple Gold Mines president and CEO, and he said the strategic partnership with Agnico marks a transformational milestone for Maple Gold and supports the opportunity in front of us. Their involvement along with the Joutel contribution will create a highly prospective land package and has the potential to form an exciting new gold district in Quebec's Abitibi gold belt. So only a $6.2 million investment from Agnico, but it really just gives them a foothold. It grows their Joutel project, and it seems like to me this is kind of a typical slow and steady Agnico Eagle move. This has Sean Boyd's name written all over it. And of course, Maple Gold Mines is happy. They're partnering up with Agnico, so much more likely that their project's going to happen. So interesting news in Quebec. Moving on. So then we have Osisko Royalties, and this one's a spin-out. Osisko Royalties is spinning out Osisko Development, and they have raised $100 million. And here's some details by Canadian Mining Journal staff. Osisko Gold Royalties has announced the spin-out through a reverse takeover transaction of Osisko Development. The newly formed developer will hold the past-producing Caribou Gold Project in BC and the San Antonio Gold Asset in Mexico's Sonora State, in addition to other mineral assets and a portfolio of equity positions in publicly listed companies. Sandeep Singh, Osisko Royalties president, noted how the transaction is expected to simplify the respective Osisko companies. Quote, "We are very pleased to announce the spin-out transaction, which will simplify Osisko Royalties into a pure-play royalty and streaming company while maintaining exposure to the company-making assets contributed to Osisko Development." End quote. And interestingly, Singh also highlighted that the technical team is being transferred to Osisko Development, makes sense, to leverage its mine-building knowledge, and that the royalty player will keep royalty and streaming interests in the assets transferred. So Osisko Royalty is going to keep a royalty in Osisko Development and their assets. And we have a quote from Sean Rosen, who is Osisko Royalty's chair and CEO, and he said, quote, "We eagerly await the launch of Osisko Development to advance a rare set of near-term producing and flagship gold assets. Our vision is to develop the Caribou Gold Project into one of the predominant mining camps in Canada." And final details on this deal, Osisko Royalties would hold 88% of Osisko Development, while 11.8% would be held by the holders of subscription receipts. And I believe that was the $100 million that got put into the company. Osisko Royalties holds over 135 royalties, streams, and precious metal offtakes on North American mineral assets. That's quite a few. So you can read the full story, and then there's details on some of their assets. That is on northernminer.com. And continuing on, and so here's the sale of a copper mine by Sumitomo. And Sumitomo is one of those interesting Japanese mining companies. I mean, they seem to have their hands in a lot of different things. I think they do it their own way, Sumitomo. Don't know too much about the company, but you just see them every month or so for years on end. You'll see Sumitomo's name mentioned. And they have sold their Sierra Gorda copper mine, and they have a 45% holding in the mine. And according to BMO capital markets analyst Edward Stirk, he estimates that the present value of Sumitomo's stake is $513 million. So it's not exactly huge. It's not small, but it's not huge. And we have a quote from Stirk. "It is worth noting that the JV shareholders have been forced to provide external funding every year since inception due to disappointing performance. and this may drive a discount. So it doesn't sound like this investment is doing too well. And also, they're in partnership with a Polish miner, which is state-owned, called KGHM, and they are not interested in increasing their stake. So the world is looking for copper, but just not at Sierra Gorda. Jakub Skopek, an analyst at BMM Bank, noted that Sumitomo's exit may pose further challenges to KGHM. Quote, the signal that Sumitomo wants to get rid of the Sierra Gorda project is, in our opinion, a negative one, and might mean that the possibilities of further fast efficiency improvements without major capital outlays will quickly run out. Another risk is whether, after selling the stake by Sumitomo, a new owner will shoulder managing the project as well, as so far KGHM has visibly lacked such competences on international markets. Sounds like the Sierra Gorda project is in trouble. You can read the whole thing on northernminer.com. And we have another sale. K&S sells American salt business for $3.2 billion, quite a bit bigger of a deal. It's by Cecilia Jamasmy, mining.com. German fertilizer producer K&S AG has sold its America's salt unit to the Kistner Group for $3.2 billion. And this is a move that would provide the company with funds to pay down debt. The sale of Morton Salt comes a decade after K&S acquired it for $1.7 billion. So they, in fact, doubled their money. It was triggered by a drop in potash prices, which undermines the debt financing of the company's new potash mine in Canada called Bethune. So I guess they were hoping that potash would be a little higher at this point. The price tag to be paid in cash at closing represents 12.5 times its 2019 earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization of $257 million. The chairman of the board of directors, Burkhard Lohr, for K&S, said, quote, with the sale of our America's salt business, we are taking a giant step in reducing debt. We are thus creating a solid financial basis for the sustainable development of the company. So it sounds like K&S needed the money, even at these historically low interest rates. And then scrolling down a bit, the company had to slash production in 2019 in response to weak potash demand following the lead of rivals such as Nutrien. In 2015, K&S fended off a 7.9 billion euro takeover bid from Nutrien, at the time called Potash Corp of Saskatchewan, of 41 euros per share. Right, so Nutrien took over Potash Corp of Saskatchewan. Potash stockpiles are at a record high, which means it will be months before the demand for fresh supply picks up, CRU senior potash analyst Humphrey Knight told mining.com earlier this year. And spot prices are expected to remain subdued until late 2020. Yeah, you don't hear about potash very much. So, signs of a bottom? You get a sale at the bottom there? Who knows? Finally, we're going to wrap up our news section just with a special diamond. I do have this soft spot in my heart for the diamond sector, which I find is a really challenged sector, but seems to still have its big fans. And here you go. Canadian Flawless Diamond sets online record at $15.7 million at auction. This by Cecilia Jamasmy, mining.com. A rare flawless 102-carat white diamond found at the now-closed Victor Mine in Canada has sold for $15.7 million. A record price in an online auction. The small egg-sized diamond was cut from a larger 271-carat rough found in 2018 and then cut and polished for more than a year. The buyer, an unnamed Japanese man, I guess you'd want to keep your anonymity if you're buying $15.7 million diamonds, bought the stone for his second daughter and has already renamed it after her, the Maiko Star. He had previously bought an 88.22-carat diamond for his other daughter, Manami, last year, the auction house said. So the Maiko Star. So thanks, Dad. Yeah, so a very interesting, the diamond market is such a unique market. So it's always fun to check in with them and see what's going on. And with that, let's take a look at metal prices. Turning to metal prices, we'd like to thank our friends at mining.com/markets for providing us with these prices each and every week. And on October 13th, gold is trading at $1,923.30 per ounce. That is $12 higher than last week's quote. Silver is also trading higher at $25.05 per ounce. That is 75 cents higher than last week. Platinum is trading at $874.18. That is $13 lower than last week's quote. And palladium is trading higher at $2,426.73. That is $69 higher than last week's quote. And turning to our industrial metals, copper is much higher at $3.06 per pound. That is 15 cents higher than last week. Aluminum is also higher at 82 cents per pound. That is 5 cents higher. Lead is a penny higher at 81 cents per pound. And nickel is 33 cents higher at $6.80 per pound. Tin is at $8.26 per pound. That is 30 cents higher than last week. Cobalt is trading at $15.20 per pound. That is 19 cents lower than last week. Zinc is also higher at $1.10, which is 6 cents higher than last week's quote. So how I would characterize this is precious metals generally higher with a bit of a pullback in platinum, and industrial metals generally almost universally higher, except for a slight pullback in cobalt. So the wind is at their back and metals sail higher. And those are your metal prices. And coming up, we have the groundbreaking ceremony at Iamgold's Côté mine featuring Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and Mattagami First Nation Chief Chad Boissoneau. And really what you hear, as I mentioned in the introduction, is the sheer importance of mining to the national, the provincial, and the local economies. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And just a note, there is French here, as Canadian politicians do, but don't worry, the French is always followed by English. If you don't understand French, it will be followed by English, which basically repeats what's said in French. It's a Canadian convention, just for any of our global listeners, because I know we have a lot in the US and Australia. We're trying to give you a first-class front row seat on what's going on in the mining sector. So I hope you enjoy this, and we'll see you on the other side.
Très honorable, Justin Trudeau, Premier Ministre du Canada.
Bonjour à tous. Merci Paul, merci Marc pour cette introduction et merci à chacun de vous pour le travail exceptionnel que vous faites en représentant les gens de Sudbury et de Nickel Belt. Je sais à quel point c'est important pour vous que les gens de la classe moyenne aient accès à des bons emplois solides, alors c'est encore plus merveilleux de vous avoir parmi nous aujourd'hui ici. It's great to be here today with Premier Ford, Doug. It's always so good to see you again. We also have Sudbury Mayor Brian Bigger and Timmins Mayor George Peary. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Chief Boissoneau for his welcome and Chief Ray for joining us and Iamgold CEO Gord Stoddart for welcoming us this morning. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize that today marks 19 years since the horrific terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. Today, we remember the people we lost in this unthinkable tragedy. They were neighbors, friends, and family. As we pay tribute to their lives, let's also remember the bravery and the sacrifice of all the first responders who arrived on the scene and rushed into buildings as others were fleeing. À l'occasion de la Journée nationale de service du Canada, nous rendons hommage aux gens de partout au pays qui mettent leur vie en danger pour aider les autres. Au cours des derniers mois, les Canadiens ont été témoins des immenses sacrifices des femmes et des hommes qui sont aux premières lignes et qui ont travaillé jour et nuit pour assurer notre sécurité. Au nom de tous les Canadiens, merci pour tout ce que vous avez fait et continuez de faire pour notre pays. It's great to be here at the groundbreaking of the Côté gold mine. I know this is not just big news for the people of Gogama, but also for folks in Sudbury, Timmins, and right across northern Ontario. During construction, This project will create more than 1,000 good jobs for people in the area, as well as 450 full-time positions once it's completed. This project was made possible by international partner Sumitomo Metal and went through an environmental assessment done by Environment and Climate Change Canada. We introduced the Canadian Minerals and Metals Plan to support projects just like this one, projects that make Canada a great place to do business and create and protect good, lasting jobs for Canadians. Plus tôt cette année, je suis allé au Congrès mondial sur l'exploration et l'exploitation minière de l'Association canadienne des prospecteurs et entrepreneurs à Toronto. Je me souviens d'y avoir parlé de la rapidité à laquelle se transforme l'économie mondiale et les raisons pour lesquelles le Canada doit être un chef de file dans le secteur minier afin de conserver de bons emplois dans nos communautés. Évidemment, dans les mois qui ont suivi, l'économie mondiale s'est transformée. Mais une réalité n'a pas changé, celle de l'importance des projets comme celui-ci pour les travailleurs, les familles et pour notre économie. Plus que jamais, nous aurons besoin d'une relance économique inclusive et équitable pour tout le monde. Voilà pourquoi c'est formidable de voir que les Premières Nations avoisinantes, la Première Nation de Flying Post et celle de Mattagami, sont également partenaires de ce projet. C'est un exemple de plus qui montre que lorsqu'on travaille ensemble, nous pouvons créer de bons emplois pour les communautés d'un bout à l'autre du pays. There's no doubt that the last few months have been hard for a lot of businesses across the country because of COVID-19. And the virus is still a health threat around the world and here at home. So as we safely reopen our economy, it will take time for us to make up the economic ground we lost to the global pandemic. But this project shows how our economy is getting back on its feet. International investors know that Canada is a good place to do business. Even as we face tough economic times around the world, global investors have confidence in Canadians. Right now, we have an opportunity to build a more resilient Canada, a Canada that's healthier and safer, more inclusive and fair, a Canada that's both greener and more competitive in the global economy of the future, tackling the threat of climate change while creating good jobs for years to come. As anyone in the mining industry already knows, we can't solve climate change without strong leadership from the natural resources sector. Just take the Borden mine, which became Canada's first all-electric mining facility. Innovations across this sector will be crucial for a green recovery and will help drive the clean transition that we need. From the nickel and cobalt that are used in batteries for electric vehicles and solar panels, the mining sector is really important in building a better future for us all. So our government stands ready to work with companies to build that more resilient, healthier country where everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed. Ce secteur a la possibilité de créer de bons emplois durables pour les Canadiens, de stimuler notre économie et de paver la voie de la relance verte. Et cela commence par des projets comme celui-ci. Nous allons continuer de travailler avec tous les ordres de gouvernement afin d'assurer un meilleur avenir pour tous les Canadiens. Merci beaucoup. Je suis maintenant très content de céder la parole au Premier ministre Ford. Doug.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and great to be here with the Prime Minister. Every time we get together, we seem to be having great announcements. So this is great when everyone's pulling in the same direction and working together. That we've been working together from day one of the COVID, and I appreciate the Prime Minister's leadership, the Mayor's leaderships, the Indigenous communities' leaderships, and it's great to be here in beautiful Gogama, the heart of Northern Ontario. Bringing jobs to every part of this province is a top priority of our government. And I'm honored to be supported. I always say my all-star ministers, Minister Greg Rickford, Minister Yakubuski, they're both doing an incredible job and driving jobs forward. They're two of the hardest working ministers that I know down at Queen's Park for Northern Ontario. I'd also like to recognize Chief Boissoneau. Chief, thank you, and Chief Ray. This couldn't happen without you. Without your cooperation, there wouldn't be 450 full-time jobs. There wouldn't be 1,000 construction jobs. So we're very, very grateful, and you're absolute champions, and thank you for your leadership. But I also want to thank Gord. Gord, thank you and your team, and Iamgold for investing and having faith in not only Ontario and Canada, within the Indigenous community, and thank you for our working with them. We can accomplish anything, as I said earlier, when we work together. After months of seeing COVID-19 hit our economy hard, we see a glimmer of hope. We see new opportunities right across our country and our province, and we take another step forward on the road to economic recovery. Today, we're breaking ground on an incredibly important project here at the future site of Côté Gold Mine. As you've heard many people say, again, creating 450 full-time jobs. That's 450 people that can pay the bills now. They can help out their families and their communities, put food on their table. And during the construction, this project, as we've heard again, over 1,000 construction jobs. That's so important for the region as a whole. And those people are going to be able to put a paycheck in their pocket and pay the bills and support the economy. It's absolutely incredible how one project can change so many lives in a community. And I know Minister Rickford, Minister Yakubuski will speak to this in a moment. But I just want to say, it's always a good day when we hear those words, we have a problem with red tape. I love when people tell me that, because those are the areas that we can support you, and it doesn't cost the taxpayers a penny. It just needs the political will to get moving forward, and I want to again thank the Prime Minister and all my ministers for pushing this forward. And that's exactly the case for this project. We were able to work with the Ministries of Energy, Minister of Natural Resources, and Minister of Environment. And the environment is critical. We go through the process and streamline approvals, remove roadblocks, and make sure the project got shovels in the ground. We're ready to get Ontario back on track. Ontario is a mining powerhouse around the world. We're a leader when it comes to exploration and production. Ontario's mining sector contributes $10 billion directly to Canada's GDP, employs over 71,000 people across our great country. After years of delay and decline and neglect, our government has been able to work with the industry partners to breathe new life into the sector and attract new investments. We've also worked closely with local municipalities, community leaders, and of course, our Indigenous partners. And we need to keep going. With every shovel in the ground, we're taking another step towards recovery. Another step to ensuring no part of Ontario is left behind. We will work together to build a better, stronger future for the people of Northern Ontario and for the people across this great province. And we won't stop until every single community, every single business, and every single person in this province is back on their feet. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
I would now like to invite Chief Boissoneau once more of Mattagami First Nation to share with us his thoughts. Thank you.
Let's see if I could understand my wife's writing here, so bear with me. So again, Anin, bonjour, hello. On behalf of Mattagami First Nation, I'd just like to welcome all the participants, our friends, our provincial and federal leaders, Mr. Doug Ford, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and there's so many people and politicians that I met here today. I apologize if I can't pronounce your name. Mr. Mark Scheer, who is always reaching out to me to see how things are going, and all other party reps like Mike. And Mike, there's a history with me and Mike, and I just like to share with you. Years ago when we grew up playing baseball, broom ball was a big sport around this area, and a lot of people were surprised when they heard we played broom ball. They didn't know what it was, and they thought it was just chasing a ball around with a bunch of brooms. Well, probably that is exactly what it is. So then we converted over to hockey and that. But growing up with Mike through the years and that, and then as we get older, we kind of separate and go our different ways. Have families. Mike moved away to Dubreuilville, and he was in the lumber business. And the next thing you know, I find out he's into the political venue. So eventually, I ran into him there years later, and I told him, I said, Mike, when you make Prime Minister, I got stuff on you, man. So to continue, I'd just like to say that today is going to be a historical event that fortunately we're able to have, considering that the virus that has plagued many parts of this world. Today we start the process of a prosperous journey for all stakeholders, local communities and their members, and many other communities that this project will support for the benefit of our families and future generations of the next 20 plus years. More importantly, I'd like to thank the Creator for the sacrifice that our Mother Earth has given us by providing the minerals that will be extracted for this and the vast amounts of employment opportunities this project will create to build and finally process the sought-after resource. I really like to thank the elders and past generations who, without their sacrifice, there may not have been such a long, this may not be happening. There's a long history and many stories that this site holds from decades of persistent exploration programs that use a variety of past and present techniques to map out the minerals that lie beneath us. Stories and facts about the many faces that worked at the area of the deposit. Even myself, I worked here 33 years ago in 1986. I've had the pleasure of diamond drilling underground when it was an exploration ramp, so it's been on the go for quite a few years. We've seen multiple groups of companies that came and went throughout the decades and changed ownership a few times, such as Chester Muirgold Resources, Osprey Gold, Trelawney are a few of the names that I'm familiar with, and finally our present partner, Iamgold and Sumitomo, who will now take us to a higher level of certainty that we can continue to enjoy the area and all the other resources that Mother Earth provides for us, such as hunting, fishing, traditional medicines, and are among some of the fruits that we utilize. And also being able to continue to teach our young generation the traditions and history of this area by being able to stay in the area for the jobs that are much needed for many people that continue living in this unique and diverse landscape in traditional territory of Mattagami, Flying Post, and Gogama. The topography in this area and the two main industries were forestry and mining have dictated the lifestyles of the past and present. We did have other opportunities such as the MNR and the CN Railway, who also contributed to some of the success stories, but also some not so good stories that had devastating impacts on the community members and the people of the region. Remember not long ago we had the big derailment in the area, and it was unfortunate. As a parent of two sons and a grandparent of two beautiful grandsons, I sometimes share my memories of the changes that I've seen over the last half a century, such as remembering that it doesn't seem that long ago that the only access of getting up here when I was growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, when we come to visit, was by train, and we had to drive to Caperhill and catch the train to come up here because there was no highway through here. So that's how old I am. And my kids, they look at that and they can't believe that because they're not used. They've never seen that type of or experienced anything like that in their history. So, and the stories that the people that before us, our grandparents and our elders that shared with us about their lifestyles living in the area and the challenge they had growing up with when there was no train tracks and no roads coming through. So those are good stories that should not be forgotten. In closing, I'm sure that we can all agree that it's a sacrifice that we all make in our life. There's many sacrifices we all make in our lives that give us the motivation to support developments such as this and the opportunities that will be created through this continued relationship with Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities, because we all share the fruits of Mother Earth that Mother Earth provides. Through negotiations and honest dialogue over the last close to a decade, and it may seem that long at times, but in between there was some stalls and some hiccups. But one of the solutions that we did to rectify that problem was go fishing. And Gordon and the corporate guys can attest to that, because we were honored to bring them out a few times and to our secret lake there. We blindfolded them and brought them in. We fed them, cleaned their fish for them, and we blindfolded them and sent them back out. So with this project, everybody, all the northern communities, from Sudbury to Timmins, we're all gonna live in harmony and prosperity with each other. The jobs will ensure that our children will be taken care of through the sacrifices that we've all shared to get us here today. I'd like to thank Iamgold and Gord and his corporate guys, and the past CEO, Steve Letwin, who was a very nice guy to deal with as well, and everybody else that was involved. And actually one more guy, Dave. Nobody really knows Dave too much, but Dave Brown was instrumental part of the Iamgold team. He was a grounded person here on the site and developed a good relationship with all members of the communities, Flying Post and Mattagami. And sometimes you had to tell him to go home, but he got the message. So again, miigwech everybody. Thank you for being here today, and we look forward to the future. Thank you.
A sunny goodbye from Mattagami First Nation Chief Chad Boissoneau. Looking forward to the future. A note of optimism in a challenging year. Thank you once again for listening. I hope you improved your French a little bit. And we got lots on the plate coming up in the coming weeks. And don't forget to sign up for the Global Mining Symposium. It's only a month away. Get your seat now. It's free. Until next week, take care.